is to not just show your support for these candidates, but to commit to work. Now, what do you say about Howard Coble?
Well,
when I grow up, I want to be like him. Howard, I knew the best. I'm going to tell a story on him. Many of you know in 1992 I ran, and I lost. It wasn't a good year to be a Republican. Howard Coble told me throughout that campaign, he said, "Richard, run hard, run to win." But he said, "I tell you, if I ever lost, I'd never do it again." I lost that election, and I hadn't even woken up the next morning when Howard Coble called me and he said, "You've got to run again." Howard is a mentor to me.
Tell him what Brooke calls me.
My wife calls him old man.
But she has a smile on her face when she said it.
And let me just say, my wife and my oldest son are here. I'm not going to ask them to work their way through the crowd. You'll have an opportunity to meet them. Many of you have experienced, as my two sons have grown up, on the annual Christmas card that you see. And both are now out in the world, both have jobs, both get paychecks. That's an important thing to point out these days. But more importantly, we're here because not every family and every child is so blessed. You know, the economy's about as bad as it's been in my lifetime. There are Americans and North Carolinians that are hurting today. They desperately want policies in place that provide the opportunity for them that we got from our parents. Now, we're here today not to whip you up. You wouldn't be here if you didn't already know the problems. We're here today to show you the opportunity, and you just heard about it. For the first time since 1898, we have the opportunity to take the North Carolina House and the North Carolina Senate and to be in charge. I don't know about you, but 112 years of being in charge, I believe it's time to hand it over to somebody else and let us do it right. That can't happen without these state house and state senate candidates getting elected right here, right in your backyard. I don't know about you, but I don't know how I could smile if I'd been beat up like Rick Gunn has. You know, the truth is, politics have become more about winning than about electing people who believe what we believe. This is the year that we've got to make sure that we elect people that believe what we believe. That's the only way the fabric of this state and of this country is going to be knitted back together. Now, I want to take a personal moment on judges. Everybody has highlighted certain aspects of this, but I got to tell you that they don't have a letter behind their name. There's no R, there's no D. There's no L, there's no C. There's a big difference between L and C. We've got to make sure that we are, in fact, the ambassadors of these judicial candidates, that we go out and share with our relatives and our friends and our neighbors and our co-workers which ones are conservatives and which ones are liberals. It makes a difference in what we're able to do and the direction we're able to take in this state. It is absolutely essential that on the Court of Appeals and the North Carolina Supreme Court that we put conservative judges on the bench, and they need your help. Now, I have an opportunity to work in every county in this state. And I can tell you that you're unbelievably represented in your sheriff, but you know that. I commented to him as we rode over here, well, I actually thanked him because he's willing to defend his position. And his position is what's in the best interest of the people of Alamance County. Not everybody does that, and you can thank him. Now, Dan, listening to you, if they haven't asked you to speak to the team before the game today, I sure think they're making a big mistake. Because you've done a good job of firing everybody up. But this is the opportunity to put conservatives on the bench, to take the majority in the North Carolina House and the North Carolina Senate, to send Howard Coble back to Congress, and to give him some help. You know, on November the 2nd, when I'm watching Fox News for the returns, when that check goes beside Bill Randall's name, you know what I'm going to think of? Nancy Pelosi's no longer the Speaker of the House. I'm going to ask you for something very special today. And then we'll ride off and we'll see another group. It's human nature when you're asked to do something to think of every reason why you can't do it right now. We're all for it until we find out we want to do it today. We've got 10 days left. 10 of the most important days of our lives. I've got to ask you, cancel the hair appointment. Cancel whatever you've got on your schedule. For the next 10 days, outside of work, commit yourself to the process. Work for a candidate, put up signs, make phone calls, walk door to door. Don't wait for somebody else to join you. Do it on your own. Reach out to your relatives, reach out to your friends. Take your coworker. If you've early voted, take the sticker they gave you and wear it every day for the next 10 days. Early voting is contagious. When people see you've done it, they will feel like they need to do it. They will leave work. They will go and do it. But we've got to make sure that we turn out an army, not just for Election Day, but all throughout early voting. The trend is great for Republicans right now, and we've got to make sure that we expand that to take as big an opportunity as we possibly can. I want to tell you a personal story in concluding. About a year and a half ago, I'm in Asheville doing a Memorial Day service. We had hundreds there as we dedicated a World War II monument. And after the ceremony was over, I was surrounded by a group of people, and I saw out of the corner of my eye a gentleman coming over, and he got in the crowd and he reached on his wrist and he grabbed something off. And he reached through a couple of people and he slid it on my wrist and he said these words, "Make sure this isn't in vain." When I started back to my car, I looked down and realized on my wrist he'd put his son's KIA bracelet, Iraq, 2006. I got back to Washington the next Monday and sat down to write this family and didn't really know what to say to them. I remembered that John McCain was one of the few people that I'd seen that had worn a bracelet. So I went down to John's office, it's right down the hall, and I told him the story. And John opened up his desk drawer and he showed me a box in there where he'd been given 22 other bracelets from parents and spouses. And I said, "John, what do I say?" And he said, "Write them a letter that says I will wear this my entire life and they will be buried in my casket with me." Well, I went back to my office and I did exactly that. The toughest letter I think I've ever written. 2 weeks ago today, I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina. A Republican rally, a couple hundred people. I told that story. And as the crowd subsided and we headed to the bus, a couple walked up to me and she reached down on her wrist and she handed me her son's KIA bracelet, National Guard. And she said, "Senator, use this to start your box. When I ask you for 10 days to work, to change the direction of this country, the sacrifice that I'm asking you to make doesn't even compare to the sacrifices these kids are making on our behalf, generations before them have made on our behalf, so that we can be in Burlington, North Carolina at noon on a Saturday, meeting the candidates that believe the things we do, asking for our participation, asking for our vote. How can we refuse to say, "I'll do anything," when we see the sacrifices that so many have made so that we can be here? We actually get to elect our own leadership. That's almost novel in the world. And it's something that's so precious that when you see the fabric of this country beginning to tear and the direction beginning to change, you have to ask yourself, how long is it before they encroach on even this most prized possession? I don't want to question when. I want to make sure the answer is never. Amen. And that can only happen through your participation. Your participation from now till November the 2nd. If you haven't early voted, I'm going to ask you to go out on Monday, first thing, go to the polls, vote, get that sticker, put it on your lapel, don't take it off for 8 days, 9 days. We're getting to the point it's hard to figure out what day it is. But understand this, that if you'll make that commitment to us, if you'll make the commitment to do everything you can possibly do to reach out and educate and touch and participate, I'll make this promise to you today, and I think I can make it on behalf of Howard and myself. We'll go back to Washington, and we'll spend our time making sure that never again does anybody apologize for the United States of America. Thank you.